Hi folks, how are you doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And today I'm offering a devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. And the title for today's little devotion is A Song for LongHaul People. Hope it speaks to your heart and your spirit and your mind and your soul. So I invite us just to still ourselves. Let's invite a loving presence to be here amongst us, and of course to awaken from deep, deep within us all. I have lit the flame of freedom in this cup of belonging, acceptance, and of course love. Come and enter into this time and space and come in the spirit of love. Know that you are welcome. You are welcome whoever you are, wherever you have been, wherever you may well yet be. Know that you are welcome as you are, exactly as you are in this moment. In this time may we be reminded of our highest aspirations and be inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know that once again we are not isolated beings, but that we're connected in mystery and in miracle, connected to the universe, to one another, and to all of life. Let us live together in the spirit of love. Last Sunday was the London Marathon. Obviously it'd been moved because of the COVID pandemic. And last Sunday, for myself, felt like a bit of a marathon, if I'm honest. It was one of those Sundays when I led worship at three congregations, one straight after the other. It's not the first time I've done this, I do it fairly regular, really. And I recall one Sunday during a particular busy Advent a few years ago when I led at four separate congregations, one straight after the other. And I have to say, it made me quite ill for a couple of days. I was so exhausted, emotionally as much as anything. I will never do four in a day again. Well, I hope not anyway. I hope I remember that when I'm asked. Now that would have been an even bigger struggle last Sunday if it had been this Sunday, because it's the Manchester Marathon today, or this Sunday, probably when you see this video. And this always affects both of the congregations. I can find a way this year to weave in between the two, but getting around afterwards would be quite tricky. I've planned my route though. I'm not running, but I've got to work, and hopefully I won't be at the congregations on my own on a Sunday, as some people will find ways to get here. But last week felt like a bit of a slog. It was challenging, and it would have been impossible if it had been this week, I think. And I confessed after the second service at Altrincham to our organist, lovely Margaret, that I didn't really feel like going to the third one at the beautiful congregation up in Rivington, up in the hills around Bolton. But I'm glad I did. It was a lovely experience, and I'd not been for a long time. But I just didn't feel like facing it that morning, that afternoon. I had a very long, busy week. I was feeling very, very tired. Perhaps after the Altrincham service, I'd hit what the marathon runners will call the wall. Yeah, the night before I had a rather distressing phone call, with a long distressing phone call with a dear, dear friend who's not too well. But I got up and I did my duties that day. I kept going, and thank God I did, and I do. Last Sunday was a very special day in so many ways, full of wonderful and beautiful surprises actually. It ended late, but was full of meaning and purpose all day long. It had begun quite early in the morning with a very unexpected encounter with two of my favourite human beings, people who have been there for me for many years, who I've shared so much with, Alan Myerscough and Peter Sampson, who I'd first met many years ago at Cross Street Chapel in Manchester, sorry. Now, oddly enough, that Sunday morning, just as I was leaving the chapel to get a cup of coffee from Cafe Nero, actually, before I went to Urmston, I'd just set up for the day here. And as I was walking down Sylvan Grove, outside the chapel at Dunham Road, I heard this disembodied voice shout, "Danny!" And I looked around, and there was Peter Sampson's head popping out of Alan Myersco's car window. They'd parked up outside the chapel. Apparently they park there every week. Peter gets dropped off in Altrincham, so they come from North Wales. He gets dropped off in Altrincham to go to Cross Street Chapel in Manchester, while Alan plays the organ at several congregations around Cheshire. So he drops Peter off to get the tram. Well, I said hello to them both, and I said, "Do you fancy coming for a coffee before we go our individual ways?" And that's what we did. It was an absolutely delight. There was such joy in that unexpected encounter. It lifted my spirits and it filled my heart with love. There are so many little things that lift you up and keep you going when you don't always feel in the spirit yourself. There is always invisible and visible help available. We've just got to be open to it. On Monday morning I got up early and I went to the gym. I had a really good session. I felt re-energised again. And as I was changing afterwards, I overheard a conversation between two men. One of them had obviously run the London Marathon the day before, and I could hear him describing the feeling after he'd finished. He said he felt like death, like his body was falling apart as he laid there on the floor at the finish line at the mile. He felt completely broken, had tears, and it was almost tearful, almost crying. And then he described this insane idea, this insane thought coming into his mind. I want to do that again. When can I do it? That's marathon runners for you. And the evening before, I'd met up with another friend who had just run the marathon with his dad and his dad's running buddies. My friend is super fit and his dad has overcome cancer in recent times, and the odds were very much against his father surviving. But he has, and he's running marathons again. My friend's dad was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and apparently he'd been one of the very first patients to undergo a revolutionary CAR T cell therapy treatment at the Christie in Manchester, and he'd recovered. So I think in their eyes, running a marathon together was nothing in comparison to what they'd already been through. My friend, although he's super fit, is not a runner. And he said that when talking with his dad's friends, he realised that he'd never met a more obsessive group of people in his whole life than runners, especially marathon runners. The world is full of beautiful lunatics, don't you think? They add so much to the rich tapestry that is life. I'm just chuffed personally just to see my friend happy after all the suffering he and his family have been through. Just wonderful that a father and son can run together. Just beautiful. Now, as you can guess, as you probably already worked out, this got me thinking about marathons and marathon runners and the characteristics of such people, and if there are lessons here for life in general, particularly the spiritual life. I was thinking particularly about the struggles that we all face in life, like the battle my friend's dad had with cancer. I was thinking of the struggles the world has faced these last 18 months. And as we look forward to what we are being told is going to be a very difficult winter. If they're saying it's going to be a very difficult winter, it's going to be a very, very difficult winter. So buckle up. I thought to myself, we're going to have to be in for a long haul, a continuing marathon, it seems. Only this week I've heard of people really struggling with emotional, mental and spiritual help. I was deeply upset the other week when I heard of a lovely member at the Duckingfield congregation I was taking the service at, who basically has given up on life. She stopped eating because as she put it, COVID has got into her head. So sad. Someone I've grown to know well over the years. Someone I care deeply about. So sad. Like I already mentioned, I've had a painful conversation with one of my dearest friends who's struggling and is continuing to struggle. They're seeking help, but they're struggling. I have heard of others, many others, struggling this week, and friends of friends. How much we need to stick together and help one another, keep going, to support one another, just to offer what we can, even if it's just a bit of cheerleading at times. Just like the people that line the streets of Manchester will be doing today and in other places throughout the land. Keeping one another going through difficult times. Even if it's just supporting, but sometimes we can carry for a short while. We can't carry someone's burden for long, but sometimes we can just help them along. Just help them along. Walk with them, perhaps. Breathe with them, perhaps. Sing with them, perhaps. Clap with them, perhaps. And let them do that for us when we need it too. We're in this one together all the way, remember that. The journey cannot be done alone. It's not where you go, it's who you travel with that matters. And this thought's brought to mind a little bit of wisdom I read a while ago. This wisdom is sometimes incorrectly, I believe, attributed to the filmmaker Michael Moore. He may have uttered the words, but they weren't his words originally. As I understand it, they were uttered originally by Amy Van Ordsel. Anyway, this is the wisdom which matters more than who said it, really. This morning I've been pondering a nearly forgotten lesson I learned in high school music. Sometimes in band or choir, music requires players or singers to hold a note longer than they actually can hold a note. In those cases, we were taught to mindfully stagger when we took a breath, so the sound appeared uninterrupted. Everyone got to breathe, and the music stayed strong and vibrant. So let's remember the advice of music. Take a breath. The rest of the chorus will sing. The rest of the band will play. Rejoin so others can breathe. Together we can sustain a very long, beautiful song for a very, very long time. You don't have to do it all, but you must add your voice to the song. And this is a song for LongHaul People. A song for LongHaul People. And we're all LongHaul people. Life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Anyone can put effort in for a short while, but that's not enough. It's not what's required actually. What's required is sustainability, endurance, or Sticktooativeness, as I once heard it described. What a great word. It's not a real word, but you know what it means. Stress is not leading. Stress cannot be sustained. You can't stay stressed for the long haul. You'll just fall apart. Your whole body will collapse actually. Stress is something that's helpful for the sprint or the sprinter, but it's not much use to long haulers. You just can't live in that state. And in the 10-step stress solution, live more, relax more, re-energize, an amazing title, but it's almost a marathon reading, isn't it, by Neil Shah. He explores how life is like a marathon race, requiring a relaxed body with only an occasional sprint. It describes how a sprinter is usually muscular and stocky, highly stressed, and they don't, to run the 100 metres, you don't even need to breathe in the 100 metres race. He states about sprinters: during a race, their bodies are usually very tight and tense. Their teeth are gritted, their veins are bulging, and they have looks of determination on their faces. Whereas a marathon runner is lean, They have little tension in their bodies. They are relaxed as they do not wish to waste energy. Breathing is vital to them, he states, long distance runners take slow, deep and rhythmical breaths. They breathe deep into their belly, maximizing the amount of oxygen they are inhaling, which in turn keeps them relaxed and helps to fuel their run. He suggests that we cannot face life as sprinters, and stating instead that our approach to life should be that of a marathon runner, to develop a sustainable and maintainable pace, and to speed up when faced with a challenge or a stressful situation, always returning to our long distance pace. That we need to develop the stamina and endurance of a long distance runner, and you will ensure that you happily and healthily keep yourself moving through the marathon that is your life. But seeing life like a marathon can feel like a bit of a slog, can't it? When I'm at the gym, I don't really enjoy doing cardio, but I find myself doing it each day, and I do it first thing, otherwise I won't do it, which some say is not the way to do it, but it's the way that works for me. I think of first things first, about my health and well-being. Got to take care of the heart. But without the heart, I have nothing else. So I do it, even though I don't really get much of a kick out of it. It can feel at times a little bit Sisyphean, if you like. Do you know what that word means? Well, Sisyphean literally means extremely difficult to the point of futile. And it relates to the king of Corinth in Greek mythology, Sisyphus. Sisyphus, not an easy thing to say, Sisyphean or Sisyphus. It's a bit like a snake, isn't it? Yes, sometimes sticking to it when life is particularly difficult can feel futile. You feel like you're on a road to nowhere, really. I'm on a road to nowhere. You know the song, don't you? Well, it doesn't feel as good as that, though. You can feel like Sisyphus, that from Greek mythology, pushing a rock up the hill each day, only to wake up the next day with the rock back where it was, facing the same rock on the same hill, day after day after day after day, day after day. The same task must be fulfilled again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, on into infinity and beyond. It can feel like Groundhog Day. It doesn't have to be like this, though. Before his eternal punishment, Sisyphus loved life and all its possibilities for joy and happiness, and he loved life so much he defied the gods by stopping death. When the gods discovered his trickery, they designed the perfect punishment for him. They gave Sisyphus eternal life, but a life without any joy. That was his punishment, because no one would desire a life comprised solely of pushing a rock up a hill, knowing that the rock's going to roll back down again by the next morning. So in the end, nothing is accomplished beyond reaching the top of the hill, day after day after day after day, on into infinity. There is no end to this. Now, of course, this is a myth. And the usual understanding of this myth is that Sisyphus, as hell, is repeating this futile task day after day after day. But I'm not sure about this. I don't think it's the task that's hell. The hell is that he has to face the task alone. I think this is where the lack of joy comes from facing his struggle alone. Hell for me is the inability to ask for help, and whether that help is visible or invisible. So you see, Sisyphus is punished for his hubris, his excessive pride, his self-confidence, and his defiance of the gods. His belief he can do it alone, and his defiance, if you like, of reality. It comes from his belief that he can live forever, and the fact that he must fulfill his task alone. And yet the beauty of life is in the fact that it doesn't last forever. Thus each moment is precious, for it's never repeated. No two moments are never exactly the same. Groundhog Day doesn't really exist. Remember, Heraclitus, no one steps in the same river twice. Why? Because the river is not the same, and neither is the person stepping into the said river. But also remember that we do not travel alone. We do not get through on our own. We have help available to us, visible and invisible. All we've got to do, well, I say all, it's not easy. All we have to do is to level our pride and let that help, both the visible and the invisible, be there for each of us. And of course, offer our own hand when our hand is needed by another. Not that we complete each other's tasks, no, the other person's task is theirs. No, what we do is we support, we encourage, and we offer a helping hand when it's needed, whilst also taking the hand of another when we need it too. The hand is open, welcoming. Take my hand, take my hand. I suspect the secret to it is vulnerability, seeing that we're human, that we're not gods. It's vulnerability that keeps us persevering when life is difficult, to stick to it when life is hard. So maybe admitting that you're tired and asking for help is the real strength actually that gets us through. I saw this once again last Sunday, and I saw it on several occasions. I've seen it again this week, as I've seen it throughout my life. Humility, accepting our humanity, is always the antidote to the dangers of hubris. That was Sisyphus' issue really, hubris. I suspect that the dominant myth of Sisyphus pushing his rock up that endless hill hasn't done us that many favours really. It makes life sound grim. For we assume that Sisyphus is suffering because his work is endless, when maybe it's his isolation and his lack of a place to rest that's his true torment, that he does his task purely alone, that he's not part of community, not part of something greater than his singular self. And we can all feel like that at times. We do not need to persevere alone. We can not only survive but even thrive together through community. We can endure together by encouraging each other to keep up our spiritual practices, to live by our faith, and to remain open to humour, to beauty, to joy, to grief. Embracing gratitude and forgiveness, and practising compassion, both for others and ourselves. Sometimes all you've got to really do is stay open. And if you do, you see incredible beauty, or you bump into friends unexpectedly. Friends on the same or similar marathon. After I walked back up to the chapel after having coffee with Peter and Alan last Sunday, as I opened the gate into the garden, what did I see? My old friend, that scratty old magpie that's living here, that lifts me up every time. The most beautiful thing in the world at the moment to me. The people I know and serve and who offer community in a variety of ways. That's what they do. They're my inspirations. I heard a man only this morning who I see around this town, just sits with people, offers a bit of friendship. People he knows are struggling. Asks them how they're doing, calls them up, you want to go for a coffee, he says. He offers something that we all need, community. Something that we're struggling to find or re-find at this time perhaps. We're starting to do it, but we need it. We need love and support in order to keep on turning, to keep on persevering. It's important to remember that we find greater strength, power and sustenance communally together. And I believe, I've come to believe, that this is the primary purpose of free religious communities like the ones I serve. Something that's so important never to forget. These communities that I and my friends Alan and Peter serve in so many ways, and that have sustained us, while frustrating us at times over the last few years. The community I was a part of with Alan and Peter all those years ago helped me through some dark days, helped me find purpose and meaning in my life, gave me the ability to persevere. They helped me find spiritual perseverance, I suppose. They kept me going in difficult times, still does. We need each other, and the folk out there need us if we're going to persevere against the struggles we're facing in life, this winter in fact. We also need to be able to be vulnerable enough to admit that we need help, as we're all going to struggle at times. When this happens, we need to be willing to ask for that help that is there, the visible and the invisible. There will be times when we will need to let others help us to push our rocks. Maybe they'll join us in our task, or support us as we do, or whatever our struggles are. We'll also need to take time for rest. Even ministers do. Let somebody else do the breathing while we take rest and then return and do our task. We all need rest. It's vital, it's necessary to build the resilience required to journey on together. To do more than we're able to do actually. Because we can do more than we think we're capable. But we have to do it together. We have to let others lead and take their turn. I was watching a massive flock of wild geese again just this morning, squawking away. I think there were hundreds of them, it seemed, more and more and more, and they all take their turns to lead, and they all take their turns to squawk their encouragement, to sing their song for LongHaul People. All right, they're geese, but they're really in for the long haul. It's a long haul flight for them, isn't it? Those Canada geese. But they sing their song to the LongHaul people, or the LongHaul geese. Well, we're like them. We're no different. We just don't fly. Well, not actually, literally fly. But we can fly in other ways, you know. I've seen it. For all of us, there are times when to simply take the next step, to persevere with whatever our task is, seems to take all the courage we can muster. Past experiences can often stop us dead in our tracks. Fear can block our attempts to step out into the world and back into the adventure of life with all its many challenges. Sometimes it seems too much. You know what? Sometimes it is. So what do? We surrender to that fact. We ask for help, and then through faith and hope and love, we find the strength to persevere. But we don't do it alone. Remember, no one sails the ship alone. We're in this one together, all the way. All the way. There's no turning back. We're in this one together all the way. So I'm going to end this little devotion with some final words of blessing. We do not bless enough, and we ought to bless more. And everyone can bless. I was thinking about the marathon. All those thousands of people blessing all those runners as they cheer them along. It's a blessing. You might not think of it that way, but that's what you're doing. You're blessing their movement. You're keeping them going. You're cheering them along. We bless people with our loving presence, our holy presence really, our sacredness. We sanctify their lives by blessing them with our loving presence. So try and just think about that. You can offer blessings all day long. But let's start right. I'll start right now. So I invite us to still ourselves one final time. So let's return to our lives in love and in peace, touched by this time together. May we journey on to whatever life offers to us. Not alone, or not completely alone, but we are always connected by love. Love of one another, of life itself, and to whatever it is we believe is at both the centre and the circumference of the circle of life and love. May we be open to the help, both visible and invisible. And when we are asked to help, may we both hear and heed the call. And may the blessings of God go with us all, and may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, and in all that we do. Let us go now in love